Okay, multiplying by powers of 10 is not that hard. When you multiply by powers of 10, we move the decimal to the right by the number of zeros and the power of 10. So this power of 10 here is 10,000. How many zeros, by the number of zeros, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4. So if we take a number like 2.35, here's our decimal point, and we're going to move that decimal point to the right by the number of zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, oh no, what do I do? 3, 4. I'm going to add zeros on there. So 2.35 times 10,000 is 23,500. So that is the answer. And if we take something like this, here's our decimal point, 0.0012 times 100. Well, we're going to take the number of zeros, 1 and 2, and we're going to move 1 2 places, which gives us 0.12. We do not need a calculator to do this. We can handle it. Now you might have something a little bit funkier, multiplied by bigger numbers like 5 million with 6 zeros. So what we'll do is we'll multiply by 1 million, and then we'll multiply by 5. So let's just pretend here that we have 1 million. We're not going to forget about this 5. We're going to bring him back in a bit. That's important. But first of all, we're going to multiply by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. So 0.3 goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we have, what is it, 300,000. So now I'll get that out of the way. We've got 300,000, but we're not done yet. We have to multiply that times 5, because we just sort of reserved that 5 for later. And 5 times 3 is 15, and we'll keep all of those zeros with us. If you don't believe me, check with your calculator and you'll find that it works. Same again over here. We have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So instead of thinking it as times 3,000, we're going to think of it times 1,000 times 3, which is exactly the same thing. We're allowed to separate our multiplication out like that. So how many zeros do I have? I said I had 3 zeros. So 0.2, let's do it up here. 1 move, 2 moves, and 3 moves yields us 20, because remember the decimal point was over here. 1, 2, 3. So now we have 20 multiplied by 3. 3 times 2 is 6, so that must be 60. So there's our answer. Okay, other multiplication with decimals. You can totally ignore the decimal. What? Let me explain. And then afterward, you can place the decimal in the answer so it has the same number of places as the problem. So here we go. Let's pretend we have no decimal. 1.2, that's really just 12, isn't it? Yeah, let's pretend for now. For now, stay with me, times 0.6. Well, that's just plain 6. So 12 times 6 is 72. Anybody can tell you that. But, we have to go back and use the same number of decimal places we had in the problem. Here's 1 decimal place. Here's 2 decimal places. So 1.2 times was 0.6. We do 12 times 6, which gives us 72. But the answer is 0.72 because we have 1, 2 decimal places, and we have 1, 2 decimal places to begin with. Curious. Let's try another one. So let's have a look. We have how many decimal places? Here's our decimal. So to the right of the decimal, we have 1, 2, and over here we have another 3. So we're going to end up with 3 decimal places. We know that. So let's just forget everything. Oh, my handwriting's getting even worse. And we've got 22 times 41. So let's quickly work this out. And that gives us 902. But that's not the final answer because we have to account for those 3 decimal places. So therefore, the answer is 0.902. We had 1, 2, 3 decimal places, and we have 1, 2, 3 decimal places at the end. Now take a break and stop and do a little bit of multiplication. Don't use your calculator, and go through and see if you can solve some of these problems. So go ahead and work on this page, and I'll come back to you in just a moment. So here are the answers to the first section. If you look, I've looked at the number of zeros, and then I've moved the decimal place thus. And down here, I looked at the number of zeros, and then I multiplied by a 5 or a 4 or a 3, taking that out of that power of 10 and multiplying by that. Okay, now that I've finished, I need to go back because if I get this answer, this is the one I had to change. There are 2 decimal places there, and there's 2 decimal places in the question, but the calculator answer is 0.1. If I forced it to, if I was asked on a test, I would put 0.10 if I was asked to put both decimal places, but both are correct. That 0 doesn't make any difference. And now I've multiplied without a calculator, and you can see what the answers are by multiplying the numbers, ignoring the decimals, and then putting in that number of decimal places in my final answer.